I rise to speak on the Legislative Assembly's Economy and Infrastructure Committee's report into the inquiry into workplace surveillance. I want to thank my fellow committee members, the Chair, the member for Bellarine, the Deputy Chair, the member for Shepparton, the member for Pascoe Vale, the member for Tarneit, and the member for South West Coast, and the member for Warrandyte. I'd also like to thank the member for Narrabeen and the member for Kew for their time being on our committee. I said you already. To the Secretariat of the committee, Karen Risley, Committee Manager, Dr Mariana Stellano, the Research Officer, Abby Batista, the Administration Officer, and the law student Patrick Horan I'd like to thank you for your dedicated support throughout this inquiry and for the preparation of the final report. Your professionalism and hard work has been invaluable. The inquiry was initiated in response to growing concerns around increasing use of surveillance technologies in Victorian workplaces. From GPS tracking and keystroke monitoring to facial recognition and AI-driven productivity tools, it is clear that workplace surveillance has evolved rapidly, often outpacing the regulatory framework designed to protect workers' rights and privacy. Over the course of the inquiry, the committee received 44 written submissions and conducted 4 days of public hearings, hearing from workers, union representatives, legal experts, academics, employers and regulators. I want to sincerely thank everyone who contributed. In particular, I want to acknowledge those workers who shared their personal experiences, often under difficult circumstances, and this helped the committee to understand the real and human impacts of these practices. The committee's report outlines the current state of workplace surveillance laws in Victoria and highlights several critical gaps. As it stands, Victoria does not have a dedicated, comprehensive legal framework that regulates workplace surveillance. What laws do exist are fragmented across state and Commonwealth jurisdictions and often fail to provide clear guidance or enforceable protections for workers. While there are certainly circumstances where some levels of surveillance is reasonable, for example, to protect safety, prevent theft, or to ensure compliance, there is a clear need to ensure that surveillance is conducted transparently, proportionately, and with proper consultation. What we heard from witnesses was that too often workers are being monitored without adequate notice or consent and without any meaningful understanding of what data is being collected, how it is being used or whether it is secure, and how long that they hold that data for. A central concern raised throughout the inquiry was the power imbalance. Workers often feel that they have no choice but to accept invasive surveillance practices, even when they feel uncomfortable or unsure about them. This is particularly true for casual workers, young people and those in insecure employment. In some cases, surveillance was described as being used to monitor bathroom breaks, private conversations, or actively well beyond what would be considered reasonable or necessary. The report makes a number of key recommendations which I support. I'll briefly speak to 2 of them. First, the committee recommends that Victoria introduce a dedicated workplace surveillance law, a modern technology-neutral framework grounded in clear principles of necessity, proportionality and transparency. This would give both employers and workers greater clarity and confidence. It would also help ensure that emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and biometric tracking are covered by the law from the outset, rather than being dealt with retrospectively. Importantly, it would provide a baseline of rights for Victorian workers, ensuring they are not left behind as surveillance capabilities continue to expand. Second, the committee recommended introducing a requirement for employers to provide 2 weeks written notice before implementing any new form of workplace surveillance. Employers would also be required to consult with their staff or their representatives and make surveillance policies publicly available. The basic transparency would go a long way towards improving trust, reducing confusion and giving workers a real opportunity to understand and respond to changes that may affect them. It also aligns with good employer practice and would provide a clear, fair standard across the state. At the heart of the report is a simple idea that surveillance should not come at the cost of dignity, autonomy or fairness in the workplace. Just as we protect workers' rights to a safe and respectful workplace, we must also protect the right to privacy and fair treatment in the digital age. These protections are not about stifling productivity, they're about setting clear expectations and building respectful, transparent relationships between employers and employees. Last but not least, I acknowledge all those from the Victorian community who took the time to contribute to this important inquiry. Your civic participation strengthens our democracy, and I look forward to the government's consideration of its recommendations. But it was also disappointing that a minority report was written by those of the coalition. However, it is very understandable that they are very good at recording private conversation in a workplace setting.